So welcome everybody, this is the SharePoint Patterns and Practices Office Hours, September 21st session, also known as Office 365 Patterns and Practices Office Hours. Now that the PMP is owned by SharePoint Engineering, we have started using the SharePoint Patterns and Practices more as the branded term, but obviously there's existing guidance on the other Office 365 development areas as well, and SharePoint Online falls in the Office 365 bigger family, so it's part of the bigger scheme as well. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a senior program manager in Office 365 or SharePoint Engineering, just to be precise on that one. And we have few PMP core team members in call as well. Today we're going to talk about random topics. Office Hours is really created based on a request from the community, because there was a lot of people asking that, hey, when would there be some sort of a call where we can actually join and ask questions from the PMP team if we have any random technical questions from a SharePoint development side. And that was really the original idea of Office Hours. And then we wanted to actually start doing that when we started doing that on Spring. Nowadays we do, however, have quite a lot of individual community calls in the PMP side, so we can introduce small changes here and there, how we are aligning our future behavior. And you're going to see a blog post in the dev.office.com on that one as well, sooner or later. But today we're going to talk about, well, first of all, the SharePoint PMP, the introduction. So we provide code samples, guidance documentations, monthly community calls, bi-weekly community calls on a special interest group level, or weekly calls. Now we will switch to bi-weekly calls. And there's a lot of guidance around SharePoint Framework, SharePoint add-ins, Microsoft Graph, Office 365 development in general. AKMS, SharePoint PMP, you'll land to the one page where we have all of the resources, what's available, including a search tool to find all of the samples and all of that. And all of this stuff is free for reuse. So we within the SharePoint Engineering in the Redmond organization, we want people to actually use all of our stuff as much as possible, so that you can get and kickstart on what you're doing from a customization perspective. Good. So agenda for day. So we're going to talk about slightly the changes in Office Hours and special interest group meetings. We're going to do a small change on there. So we're going to align more on the, let's say, on the demand of the community, making sure that we don't overwhelm also the community on random videos and community calls all the time. We're going to talk about what the PMP core team is currently doing and what we've been building up and what's coming up relatively soon, available for you to consume any way you want. We have some topics around the product design, mainly related on SharePoint Framework, or there's some announcements. So earlier today, within 65 minutes ago, we released the release notes for the drop 4 of the SharePoint Framework. So the latest version of SharePoint Framework, which is in developer preview, is available now for people to test and play with and do development on it. And the release notes are available in the wiki. I'm going to share the link to that one in a second as well. And then obviously let's have a open discussion and feedback. You can unmute yourself if you have a question or technical question, or we can have a chat based on the IM window. These calls are not meant to be a monologue from my side, which they unfortunately quite often are. So if you have any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and say, no, I don't like what you're saying, or tell me more about that one, or is X and Y, Z true? If you have a technical question on your, let's say, day-to-day work, let's wait for the Q&A section around those, if that's fine for you guys and girls, obviously. Just a quick slide, which we typically had. What options do I have help on the PMP? And just to be clarify on this one, so the PMP nowadays consists not only the existing and the old PMP repos, but also all of the new stuff which is coming on the SharePoint Framework falls in the category of the PMP. So we in the SharePoint Engineering, up to the level of Jeff Teeper, have decided that the PMP is actually the channel to land all of the future ways of doing development in SharePoint, including using SharePoint Framework, SharePoint Adding Model, also farm solutions, because you might be doing them as well, even in, well, obviously on premises. We hope that you are gradually moving away from adding model, and then after that to the SharePoint Framework. But realities are realities, so we do understand that. Obviously, we have a lot of samples. We have like 150 samples. We have core component and guidance available. Please use them. That's one way of helping us and contributing. And then when you use them, you might find that something isn't working, something should be working differently. You can always provide feedback, report issue lists, and that's still saying Yammer group, so I need to update the slide. You would be using the tech community at microsoft.com for the discussion. And then you can obviously extend or improve existing samples. We're getting, actually during this week, there has been numerous people contacting me asking, hey, I have this great idea to enhance an existing sample, or should I do a new one? And the answer is, please do extend existing ones so that we don't have numerous similar kind of samples in our catalog. And create documentation, obviously, and one option as well. If you have skills and you are willing to do so, you are more than willing to fix issues which you're encountering, and then you can do a pull request on those, and we'll get them queued up and validated within the GitHub, so that the others can benefit out of your findings as well. And when you do that, you get credited in the monthly community calls, you get credited on our communications as well. And if you prefer, we can also get your company credited on the fact that you have contributed back on the PnP community work. Good. Today's topics, few changes on the community calls. So we realized that during this autumn, especially during this autumn, we started banging way too many calls, way too many videos, way too many things through the PnP. And based on the feedback which we had during the JavaScript special interest group last Thursday, everybody was kind of agreeing on the thing that, hey, let's actually realign the special interest group for SharePoint Framework and JavaScript to be bi-weekly. That special interest group has been seen on weekly basis, and that's actually quite much. It's much for us to prepare, and it's quite a lot for people to jump in on those calls, so that they're up to date on what's actually happening. So we can actually switch the special interest group for JavaScript and SharePoint Framework to be bi-weekly. And this is going to happen after Ignite. So this week there will be still a call led by Patrick Rogers, who's on a call as well. But then we're going to switch gradually to this bi-weekly schedule. We're going to update the links and the IC, so the calendar invites accordingly. And we're going to do a proper blog post into dev.office.com on these changes as well. The other thing what we were planning to do, and this is open for feedback for those who are in the call today. There's some familiar faces, some new faces, which is always good. But the PnP office hours, which we are doing right now. So these have been a bi-weekly kind of a random topics and random things, which is good and it's kind of valuable for you to understand what are we doing. And we know that the videos are being watched and there's a lot of questions afterwards as well. But what we were thinking is that let's actually rebrand this as a special interest group for PnP Sites Core, which is the extension for the client-side object model, provisioning engine, and the PnP PowerShell. And the reason why we want to do that is that based on our updated metrics system and our updated logistics to be able to realize how much people are using the PnP Sites Core and the provisioning engine, it's been actually a pretty big surprise how popular that setup is. And what we mean with that one is that we want to make sure that those people, those 2,000 tenants, which are using the site provisioning engine as an example, or the PnP Sites Core component in production in our Office 365 tenant, would have a forum to have an open discussion. We used to have a super active discussion in Yammer. I don't think everybody has yet moved over to techcommunity.microsoft.com, and rebranding the office hours would be kind of a supporting the usage of these existing technologies as well. Any thoughts from anyone on this kind of a thinking? That would then mean also that within our monthly community calls, which happens once a month, if we have any generic things which we want to pinpoint, we would actually pinpoint them there. But anything on a SharePoint framework would be in a bi-weekly call on Thursdays, and then anything on the provisioning engine and the future of that one would be in the bi-weekly calls of on this Wednesday bi-weekly calls. That didn't make any sense. Cool. Any feedback from anyone? Does it make sense? And really the idea is to make sure that we're not overwhelming people with all of these community calls, and you don't necessarily know which one to jump in and join.
One other idea of this change is to also work more closely with you if you want to really contribute to the site score, for example, or the provisioning engine. If there are known issues that you want to work with, and so at that point, this call can also be a forum for you to discuss about the issue resolution, for example.
Yes, absolutely. No massive amount of feedback on this one, even in IM window. We're usually we assume that no, if the answer is silent, then it's probably a good idea. We did talk about this one in the JavaScript special interest group call last Thursday, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, that does make sense, because the two main topics for now, at least in the SharePoint PMP, is actually the PnP site score, provisioning engine, and PowerShell as a one topic. Super popular. To be honest, we didn't realize how much that stuff is used. And then obviously we want to help people to adapt the future stuff, which is the SharePoint framework and JavaScript special interest group. And then all of the other topics we would kind of, we can always touch them in these calls, or then we'll have a discussion in the techcommunity.microsoft.com. No feedback, so we assume that that's fine. And obviously, if somebody is watching this recording afterwards, feel free to open up a discussion also in a techcommunity.microsoft.com on these changes. Good. What else? Some kind of an update. So the PnP videos, 2 weeks ago, we were in middle of getting this done, and now we have fully moved to YouTube. So all of the PnP videos are nowadays available from a YouTube channel. So all of the new videos will go only into YouTube. This is a decision which we actually made today. So AKMS SP PnP videos or AKMS Office Dev PnP videos, that's the older URL and the new URL. Both are redirecting to the YouTube channel. This is really the collection of all of the individual topics. So we have the recordings of these bi-weekly calls and the special interest group calls, webcast, weekly webcast, monthly calls, all of the demo videos, SharePoint framework tutorials, all of that will be in that particular location. For all of the upcoming samples, as an example, for the SharePoint framework site, we are looking into recording a video. Or if we release something new, fancy, which is cool to be able to use, we'll record a video which is showing how to get started as well. PnP moving from Yammer to network.office.com. Well, actually, it's no longer network.office.com, which is also pretty awkward. It's actually renamed as Microsoft Tech Community. Just making sure that everybody is up to date on this one. So the Yammer network is closed. To be honest, yesterday I personally tested that and could get in, but I think it might be because I'm a Microsoft employee. So anyway, the future communications should happen in the Microsoft Tech Community, and right now that AKMS address is pointing to a SharePoint developer space. I think they're calling those spaces in the Microsoft Tech Community, where you can then ask questions and CC people. It even supports private messages, which you should not actually send. Please don't ask questions as a private messages, because that's not beneficial. The whole idea of this community is that your question is visible, and then other ones can benefit out of the question and the answer. So, but I've been getting a lot of private messages lately as well, but that doesn't scale. That's the problem. Moving on things, tenant level PnP usage via Cosmos. So this is something which touched quite a few times from a metrics perspective, and this is really to make sure that we want to share that we're doing this, so that it doesn't, it's not a surprise for anybody that we collect metrics on the PnP usage. And I'll let Bert actually to explain what are we doing.
Yeah, I think we already showed us statistics in the past a little bit. We're going to give you a bit more detail today, but before I wanted to give you like a little bit insight on how does it really work. What do we have internally to be able to show you these statistics? Just for your information. So essentially what happens is when we do a request from SharePoint, from the PnP core component or from PowerShell nowadays, we add a little tag, a message in the client tag property or in the HTTP header, which is kind of as part of the request. It goes to SharePoint, and in regular SharePoint, also applies to SharePoint on premises, by the way, all the requests can get logged in the request usage tables, which we have as well for SharePoint Online. What Microsoft does is it reads all those request usage tables and ULS logs and IS logs. A lot of gigantic massive information is read on a continuous basis and fed into like a huge data warehouse, like a big data implementation. It's really super big. And all data is collected over there. And then we have, if you look at the slide at the bottom right, we have an option to write queries against that huge data warehouse using a specific language, and we call them Cosmos queries, and the data warehouse is called Cosmos. That's why that's the name, that's an internal name. But essentially, we filter out the data that all the requests that start with a particular tag, like a PnP core. So every request with a PnP core starting in the tag, we filter them out and push them into a separate database, a SQL Azure database, which then is the data source for the dashboards that I will show you right now. Yeah, okay, let's move to the dashboards. Oh, no, there's one other. I need to take over as presenter. Let's do that. First, I'm going to steal the presentation.
Absolutely.
All right, that should be good. So this is our actual usage tracking. Now we recently introduced another way to track PnP usage because we wanted to have insight in which samples are popular, which content, which pages are popular, and since everything's on GitHub, and GitHub doesn't really have like a detailed page tracking system that gives data to us, we had to kind of invent our own. Although it's a very small small thing that we invented actually. It's not super big, but essentially what we have is that in the popular GitHub pages, so in the readme.mds, there is an image tag that whenever anyone looks at the page, we will call into a tracking service, which is a basic web API service endpoint running in Azure, that then will create a page view inside an Azure App Insights instance. And would really recommend checking out Azure App Insights if you haven't used it. It's fairly powerful, giving lots of details about your applications without actually a lot of developer effort. So really recommend having a look at that one. But long story short, this will allow us to see like which pages are viewed the most. And that's the basic thing that we want to get out of that metric. So two systems, one looking at the tenant, at the real data hitting the SharePoint environment, and one looking at the page views. Now let's see what results do we get out of this one. And first one is the requests and unique tenants by month. And this a rather spectacular grab. We presented this internally, Vesta, like on Monday, to the leadership team, and they were blown away by the numbers that we are achieving with PnP. So what you see in the graph is that the black line is the unique tenants that are using PnP. So in August we had 2,090 tenants, unique tenants that really used PnP. September we will most likely go beyond the 2090, already at 1,800. So that's quite a lot of tenants. Also, the actual amount of requests is really, really, really big. So if you add the numbers on top, like the 32 million, etc., so we come to more than 1 billion requests just for the last 3 months issued via PnP, which means that there is a huge adoption and usage of PnP, and it keeps on growing. So I would like to thank you guys all for using PnP, and it's all great. And the message I want to give here is that you're not alone. So there's so many people using, and each day we get more. So the community will keep on growing, and the scope and quality and depth of PnP will keep on increasing as well. This is another view of the dashboard. So, and by the way, these dashboards are internal only. Sorry for that. So we can't really share them to the outside in the current format. But we will give regular updates during monthly calls or this kind of type of calls. So for PowerShell, you see that PowerShell is fairly new. It was only introduced with the last release. So this is data for, I think, about almost 2 weeks. Friday, it's for 2 weeks. We have more than 200 tenants using SharePoint PnP PowerShell. And a lot of people are using provisioning from PowerShell. If you see it at the right side in this nice graph, you see that the most popular PowerShell commandlets and apply provisioning template is the most popular one. So get list, get web are also popular, but it's kind of interesting to see that a lot of people are running PowerShell scripts to deal with provisioning, which is a perfectly valid model. And an interesting learning for us. So PowerShell is really doing good, especially this is just 2 weeks of data. So this is not like several months of data. It's indeed good old Erwin, like Nigel is mentioning. So Erwin did a great job with PnP PowerShell, absolutely. This is a really, really brand new piece of our dashboard and not finalized yet, but I wanted to anyhow show it. It gives you a view on where are those tenants residing in the world. And if you look at the little dots at the right side, you see that we're pretty well covering the whole world, actually. Asia is maybe a little bit less, but there's just one country, being China and Russia, 2 countries, so at the top of Asia, so which explains the less. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty global. And if you look at the count of tenants, so if your country is in the top 10, then yeah, good. If you're at the bottom, you should use more PnP. No, just kidding. But,
okay. Yeah, let's try to make this a country competition. Yes. That's a great idea, actually. Yeah. Well,
next time we add a metric country versus inhabitants. So like
US against Europe against UK. Now that the UK is heading away from Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. But, so moving on. This is a screenshot.
Yeah, sorry guys, no Brexit talks.
That's no Brexit talks. No. This screenshot is showing data from the page view system. Remember the one that we have that 0-pixel image that sends a request to a custom service, which then creates a page view entry in Azure App Insights. Azure App Insights gives you options to present the data that it collects, and this is a graph showing the actual views we get. But I think the more interesting part is the right side. You see that the most popular pages. Now, also this is data which is really new. I think about 2 weeks more or less again. So early data, but this example shows that the SharePoint.UI.responsive is by far our most popular page. So people are really interested in responsive design for SharePoint. which was an interesting finding. Like we didn't really expect that to be so high.
Exactly. And obviously we can see that the event receivers, remote event receivers, is pretty high as well. User profile mimsync, that's actually surprisingly high as well. PnP partner back, that's understandable as a new version, but then there was a embed JavaScript is understandable as well. So. And by the way, obviously on the SharePoint UI responsive package, it is good for classic UIs, but then all of the modern SharePoint experiences will be natively responsive, so which should be given. So
yeah, so over time this one will drop, should be dropping. All right, moving on, another grab, and I explicitly added this screenshot to talk about PnP versioning a little bit. So what you see in this graph is you see at the top, you see the different PnP versions of the core component. So remember, we do a monthly release of the PnP core component, and then we create a NuGet package of that core component and get it out. And this graph shows the evolution of the usage of a particular version of PnP. So if I take, for example, let's take the 1606, so the June release, which we actually released between May and June, you see it ramping up, and then you see at the end it's dropping down, because there is the August release that's picking up, and that's taking over from the June partially, and we have the September release as well, so the dark blue line. Now, what I see in this graph is that all the releases, 1604, so the April and May releases, the black and the light blue lines, they started to lower, but now they're kind of going to a steady state, which essentially means that there's, from the more than 2,000 tenants a month, a quarter is using a fairly old release. Which is, it does work, and probably this was deployed, but it's important to keep upgrading the PnP core component in your products or in your developments for your customers, because we keep on improving things. And if PG, for example, changes a particular implementation, we update the core component to reflect that, so you will get automatically a new implementation. If you keep on using an old version, you might miss out on some of these things. Which essentially also means that you have to actually upgrade your NuGet packages. So before summer, we introduced new NuGet packages, one per version. So we have one for SharePoint Online, one for SharePoint 2016, and one for SharePoint 2013. And these packages, so the SharePoint PnP Core SPO, SharePoint PnP Core SPO 2016 and 2013, these are replacing the older packages, which were named Office Dev PnP Core 16 for SharePoint Online and Core 15 for SharePoint 2013. Now, until the previous release, so until the August release, we have been updating these old packages. So when we released the August packages in the new model, we also updated these guys. That's stopped, meaning for September, we haven't updated these anymore, and going forward, we will not update these old packages anymore. So if your projects are still using one of these, you will not see any updates coming up in Visual Studio. You cannot upgrade these anymore, because they will stay frozen at this version. So if that's the case, please switch to the new NuGet packages. Alrighty. Any questions on the packages and the versioning? On the statistics? Anything that you want to know more about the statistics? Any advice that you have for us around all of this?
No comments.
No comments. That means that it's good.
Yes. That's
Nigel, the URL that you saw in the slides, actually that's shouldn't be there. It's pointing to an internal Power BI resource dashboard, which can't be accessed from outside. So apologies for that. So you can't reach that. All right, Vesa. Yes. Talk about the template gallery?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually take over as a presenter, and then I'm going to switch on my screen just to explain what's coming up. So template gallery update, this is something which we kind of been mentioning a few times in the past. So this is a remote provisioning gallery, remote provisioning template gallery, which is actually already available. We haven't made a big noise out of this one yet, but you can actually go to this templates-gallery.sharepointpmp.com and find already existing galleries. And let's actually have a look on that one in practice. So let me jump on screen sharing and screen share monitor 3 and explain how this actually works. So tell me when sharing has started. I can see a lot of screens. Sharing is good.
It's loading. Okay. I can see it.
Good. If you can see it, most likely majority of the other people can see it as well. So the SharePoint Templates Gallery is a and I wouldn't want to use this word, but it explains what's the intention out of this one. So you probably, if you've been in a SharePoint environment for a longer time, you probably heard of a initiative or a project which Microsoft did back in 2007-2010 timeframe, which was called Fabulous 40. And the idea of the Fabulous 40 was that we as a Microsoft provided ready-to-use templates for our customers to use. Half of the Fabulous 40 templates, which was actually 37 templates, or 38, 37, I think, was the final number, which is kind of funny. They were called Fabulous 40, and half of them were site definitions and half of them were site templates. Now, obviously site definitions do not work in a SharePoint Online. Site templates are actually evil as well because they are a stamp of a particular time, and so they will suffer from any future updates within a SharePoint Online. So as part of the PnP, already 1.5 years ago, probably many of you has heard about this one, is that we introduced the remote provisioning template model. And now that after this summer, we released the PnP file type, or actually in June release, which essentially means that you can save an existing site to .pnp file, including the assets, including, for example, the logo of a site or the background images or the theme files and so on. And that means essentially that you're able to create a full one file, which is actual template, almost like the classic site templates, but site templates worked using the feature framework, and that is unfortunately evil. And even in upcoming Ignite sessions people in a higher level of Microsoft will pinpoint that you should not use an older technique. You should be using PnP provisioning engine as your model for SharePoint provisioning. So we wanted to make sure that community can share SharePoint provisioning templates, remote provisioning templates built using the PnP engine, and this is the location how to do that. If you want just consume, that's fine as well, but if you want to share your custom template, that's absolutely possible as well. So right now we have a really kind of an early set of example templates. These are real templates. You can actually download them. So if I go to, for example, absence and vacation requests, I can see the screenshot of the functionality, not that superb, not so super complex, but it actually does its trick. And I can click download. And what's going to happen when I click download is that I'm actually downloading that file. So I'm actually gonna, let's do this. Well, I can just quickly do this and pinpoint that there's my absence vacation PnP file. And now that I've downloaded the PnP absence vacation template, I can just apply that to my tenant or with whatever tenant, and what will happen using the PnP provisioning engine. And what will happen is that you will get a site, you will apply the template on top of existing theme site as an example, and you will get the needed functionality on top of it. You can use existing templates in here, or you can actually contribute as a custom templates as well. So if we And by the way, Bert, we're missing a link to that template gallery in here. I think that would be pretty beneficial, which is a small thing to add, but yeah, let's add it there. But there are a few templates now available. These templates are actually dynamically loaded from the office from a specific GitHub location. So we have a PnP provisioning templates GitHub repo. So just making sure that people can actually see the URL. So github.com/officedev/PnP provisioning templates. And in here are community members, if they want, they can contribute templates. So if I go, for example, to development, I can see that there's one template available, which is called SharePoint.framework.dev site. Inside that folder, I do have a screenshot of the template, and then we do have the PnP file of the template as well. And these are dynamically, automatically synchronized to our template gallery as long as they are merged to the master branch. So as a community member, if you have an existing template, if you want people to benefit out of your existing work, you can just submit a pull request to a suitable folder, which are essentially the categories which are visible within this UI, and then your template can be available and visible for others to consume as well. There is an additional dimension on this one. So if you are using the PnP Partner Pack, we mentioned this one in the PnP Partner Pack webcast, which went live on last Monday. You can actually, if you use the PnP Partner Pack 2.0 UIs, you can directly query which templates, the templates which are available for you to provision, and from a drop-down you can select a PnP gallery templates, and then the PnP Partner Pack will just show you templates directly from this site as well, which is, by the way, super cool. So if you are interested on contributing your custom template, your functionality, or whatever the site is actually doing, you can simply use the PnP PowerShell to extract the site, and then you can submit that against the SharePoint templates gallery. And we're hoping that people will find this beneficial. And if nothing else, they can actually test these templates and understand how the provisioning engine will work. Just a small note, you probably noticed that there's a SharePoint developer site hanging here, SharePoint Framework developer site. If somebody's wondering, hey, that sounds interesting, what is it? It is actually a dev site collection which has the needed default configuration, what's needed currently for the SharePoint Framework in a dev preview. So you don't actually need to You do not need to manually apply the settings like uploading the Workbench ASPX and creating the client-side application ID and all of that, which is in our guidance. You can just download this template, run a one PowerShell command, and you're good to go. Good. I think that sums up the template gallery, and we'll be talking more and more about this one in upcoming calls as well, in upcoming monthly calls, and we're probably going to do a webcast or additional videos explaining how it actually works and how people can contribute their templates for the common benefits as well. Good. Moving back on the slides. Where are you? Where's my presentation? There's the presentation. Way too many screens. Always the same problem. Good. And then a few more things before we open up discussion for open discussion. One announcement from this week, I think from Monday, I pushed out the blog post. I'm not the guy who actually implemented this. I was just a tool to get stuff communicated in the dev.office.com. So the user profile book import API process, or the API capability, is now worldwide released. So it was previously released only for first release tenants. Now it's available for other tenants types as well. So, and how it works is it solves the problem, and it solves the following problem. So Whenever you are using SharePoint Online, you actually import your identities and user attributes from your local Azure AD. If you have a on-premises Azure AD, you don't necessarily have it, but bigger customers obviously have it. You import that to the Azure Active Directory, and at that point you can actually select what attributes are getting migrated over. So which are those attributes from Azure from AD which is getting replicated to the Azure AD. The problem with SharePoint Online is, and we're not looking at, and there's no easy solutions for this one, is that when we synchronize the profile information from Azure AD, we actually synchronize 21 attributes, and you can't control that in a tenant by tenant level. And that really is a fundamental technical limitation in a SharePoint and in the synchronization tooling. And no doubt we should have actually addressed that way back, but people have made different prioritizations, and that's a different discussion. So we are replicating only 21 attributes, and that means that if you, for example, want to have address information, if you want to have city information or PO box information replicated from the Azure AD or from your local AD, the SharePoint Online, you need to do something extra. And that means that you can actually take advantage of this user profile bulk import API. There's two ways of doing that, which are the bullet points number 3 and 4, or the steps number 3 and 4. Number 3, you create any case you need a custom synchronization tool, which is responsible of calling that API. So it might be a PowerShell, which is fine as well, or it might be a managed code, which is running, for example, in Azure as a web job. It really is up to you. You can replicate those additional attributes from Azure AD to your custom synchronization tool, or synchronization tool can actually access the Azure AD, create the needed JSON file, because the API works in a way that you have a one big JSON file which is pushed to the SharePoint, and then SharePoint processes all of the updates as once. And that's really the bulk import capability. Or if you want to get some additional information available, for example, from HR system or whatever LOB system from on-premises, you can use the same API to do that. There is a support to update user profile properties using CSON. So technically, you've been able to do this in the past as well, just by running one by one in a loop and updating those user profile properties for every single identity. But that's extremely slow and extremely time consuming. The bulk import API is something what we use also in Microsoft, and we have 140,000 employees, including the vendors, and we're using that to actually get all of the additional information in. And this is significantly faster way. So the JSON file is uploaded to the SharePoint Online, and there's a timer job which is starting in a SharePoint service, which is then processing all of the updates one by one. That blog post, which is mentioned over there, has a video where we actually show how it works, and we reference additional documentation, and there will be MSDN documentation coming out relatively soon as well. A lot of talking. Good. So that was at least something new from this week. Came out on Monday, and obviously whenever the extended properties are then available within the SharePoint Online, it's the step-by-step process. Good. Some other topics. Thank you, Rolf. Some other topics, just to remind people, because we're seeing questions on this one in the Twitter and social media, dev.office.com/SharePoint is the new SharePoint developer landing page, which is referencing then the PnP, referencing MSD, and referencing all of the other stuff. It has all of the SharePoint framework tutorials, articles, and all of that available. So anything related on SharePoint framework, adding models, or on-premises development, if you're looking into a landing page where to get started and where to get additional information, dev.office.com/SharePoint is the location to get started. You probably are aware of it, but we're seeing a lot of questions in Twitter that where can I find more information about this? And from there you can find links to SharePoint Framework APIs and all of that stuff from one location. The other things which I want to quickly mention before we go to the open Q&A, if you have any questions today, new drop number 4 of the SharePoint Framework is out. earlier today. So the README was released within 1.5 hours ago. The actual NPM package was updated slightly earlier than that. But there's a README which is explaining then where and what was actually happening, and what's the updates with this particular release. And I now just realized that I don't have the URL in the page, so let me actually paste that one in. So there's the URL for the release 4 details. So what was actually included, what's the changes, and all of that. And a final reminder before the final slides and to open Q&A. If you are coming to Ignite next week, so next week from Monday to Friday, we have an Ignite. In the Ignite, there's the expo area, like last time in Ignite, this time in Atlanta, last time in Chicago. There will be a dedicated PMP booth under the in the Office Extensibility area. And we will have every single hour of the day when the expo area is open, there will be a PMP core team member helping with any questions on SharePoint framework, SharePoint development, adding model development. Why not farm development? If you're creating farm solutions and you want help on them, trust me, I've done at least my fair share of them in the past as well. So drop by, say hi, get some PMP stickers, and then if you are interested on a demo on random stuff, just tell us, and we can talk about things openly in the expo area. And I think there's additional swag available there as well. I don't actually have all the details on the swag, but at least the PMP team has PMP stickers. So if nothing else. Good. Open discussion. So, I know that Bert has been following up on the IAM window on if there's any open discussions. If somebody has asked something which we haven't answered, feel free to ask it again. We'll follow up on it. We have 13 minutes to have an open discussion on whatever. If you prefer to unmute yourself, absolutely fine as well. So if you have questions or feedback on something, or from your perspective, something isn't right, just tell us and we'll try to fix it. That's why we have these calls. Yeah, Rolf, I know. I've actually, even though the Chicago Ignite, the only downside of the Chicago Ignite was that when you went for a lunch, you had to walk like 2 miles to the lunch area and then back to the room. That's pretty far. So within 45 minutes, you had to basically run to get something to eat and then go back on the sessions. I haven't been actually personally in Atlanta, so interesting to see how things are working there. But at least the SharePoint conference in Las Vegas was pretty nicely organized, and that was much more easily approachable rather than the last time in Chicago. That was too big. Oh, that's good. Good note, Dean. Thanks. If we only would have time to actually do something. That's always the challenge. Last time, I think actually last time in Chicago, I personally did 5 sessions in 2 days, in Monday and Tuesday, and then I had to flew away on Tuesday evening due to family reasons. So try this time I have slightly more time at least in the location. And only 3 sessions. Yeah.
Besser, it's Nigel. Can you hear me?
Yes, barely. You're pretty far away though.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's England and Finland. It is a bit way away, I know.
Indeed.
At the moment, all of the examples on the SharePoint framework are just you updating the properties. There doesn't seem to be any examples yet of, for example, if you put a button on a page and you click on the button and then you do something, with that button. So, for example, if you've got a date and time changer, then you put the date and time into the text box, hit the button, and then it does something. And there doesn't seem to, at the moment to be any examples like that. Is that deliberate?
It's not how would I put it? It's not deliberate. It's just because we haven't had a time to get to that level. So, but if you go to the dev branch, I'm going to paste in the dev branch link here. And underneath the samples, there we have actually the SharePoint CRUD, create, read, update, and delete sample already available as well. And that one is showing in the most simplistic way how to do CRUD operations against SharePoint lists using Angular, React, SharePoint PMP core component, JavaScript, and then without any library. So it's not based on a text box, but it's showing you the update operations and reading operations. And I'm going to actually update that one, the direct link to that one as well.
Okay, thanks, Vesa.
So it's an ugly UI, and by the way, but that's on purpose because we wanted to keep it as simple as possible, as clean as possible. Good, and but anyway, that's a good feedback. We need to show properly how we can do actual updates of items and editing of the fields. And there's a lot of items, working items in a queue. It's just a matter of resourcing right now. Any other questions, comments, feedback? What's missing? I'm always waiting for somebody to actually unmute and start yelling us that, oh, I want to do farm solutions, and then we can have an open discussion why maybe the farm solutions is not the right thing to do, or maybe they are. There's always advantages and disadvantages in both.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Absolutely, that's a valid point as well. Quite often, actually, it's a matter of what the customers are asking. And that's, by the way, a classic discussion point. Why are we teaching our developers to do development in adding model or SharePoint framework when we're not educating our customers to ask what the proper way? Which is, by the way, something which we are addressing with SharePoint framework. So we are starting to write an enterprise architect guidance on why you should use SharePoint framework, or when is it suitable to use and when is it not suitable for use. So we're trying to avoid that same confusion which we had with SharePoint adding model.
So I haven't looked at the agenda for Ignite, but presumably there are a few sessions on SharePoint framework. And do you happen to know? Can you confirm that and tell me? Will we get them streamed, or is there a big part in the keynote, or are the sessions going to be available? Do we have to wait 2 weeks or 2 days? Do you happen to know when we'll be able to?
I know that
for those of us, not there.
So I know that everything will be recorded now. I don't know how fast they will be available. Well, with Microsoft Build, the stuff used to be out quite fast. But I don't have the timelines when things will be available, unfortunately. I know that the keynotes should be live streamed. And we would have technology to do live streaming of other stuff as well, but I don't think they're doing that, and because that would be unfair for the people who are paying for the seminar. Maybe, I don't know. But there will be multiple sessions. There will be sessions with Chaks doing SharePoint framework from a ground up and the right ways of doing that in the future. There's a PnP session. There's a PnP session around what do we want to do with PnP in the SharePoint framework area and what's available. There's a site provisioning session, so what we're going to do in the future related on site provisioning. That's touching the past, present, and also the future direction slightly, unfortunately, because some of the things are not yet fully locked. There's general sessions on the direction of SharePoint customization, so at least. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So, and a different level, from 100 to 400 level, also from a developer perspective.
Okay, good. Sounds good.
Rob is pointing out that last year Ignite sessions were up within 24 hours. That's actually good to know. And
yeah, that's no guarantee they'll do that again this year. But
that's true.
Likely, yeah.
That's true.
Maybe faster.
Any other questions, comments? requests. What's bothering you guys? Everything is great. That's cool. Well, we don't have to hang on the line, which is absolutely understandable. If there isn't anything, but please do use the techcommunity.microsoft.com. If you have any questions, feel free to CC us. You can actually add us on the discussion. So if you have a question around something which we can help, we're more than willing to jump in and explain anything related on what has been covered. For example, in this session, there will be announcement in the techcommunity.microsoft.com when this recording is available as well, with the video embedded on the announcement as well, or whatever they are. Are they announcements or notes or posts? I don't know, but it will be there anyway. There's a Dean has a comment, question about announcing API changes in the message center, and that's a fair feedback. Right now, how would I put it? The message center is right now considered to be more for administrative people. So there has been ongoing internal discussion that should we announce API changes in the message center or not. And I do understand personally, I would be, well, for my thinking would be, why not? Why wouldn't we doing that? But then there are people who would like to be not doing that because they don't want to confuse people. They don't want to make people scary on what's actually happening. But as an example, the recent update related on tenant app only API usage, which impacts also Visual Studio experience, would have been really, really nice to be communicated using the message center, which reminded me of that new article. So in the MSDN, by the way, if you're doing app-only development in Visual Studio, Frank Marasco from the PnP team wrote this one. I'm going to paste that one in, which has been shared in Twitter, but I know that not all of you are watching Twitter feeds all the time, but that's explaining if you are doing development with tenant permissions and app only with Visual Studio, how you can do that in the future, because there has been some changes with the API. And there's already one contributor, Bert Jansen, on that article. No, never mind. But anyway, on the Dean's comment, we'll continue the fight on hopefully getting the API changes and announcements in the message center as well. But right now, I would say that the best way of following up on what's happening in the dev area around SharePoint is still the dev.office.com/blog, because, or is it blogs? Now I'm actually, yes, it's blogs. So here we go. That's the right URL. Right. Office.com/blogs. So all of the CSAM announcements, all of the API announcements, there's new stuff actually going to be announced slightly later this week as well, most likely, as long as we get a sign off from the blog post. And there will be new CSAM release coming up within hopefully next Friday, not this Friday, the next Friday. Nothing super significant, but we're aiming to do client-side object model releases once a month now. Because it happened to fall on somebody's table who's talking quite a lot in this call. So we want to make sure that the community knows when the new versions of the CSAM are coming and all of that. So somebody else is smiling at least. Good. SBO API changes, yes, that would be good. I would absolutely agree on that. So within the blog section, whenever we release a new CSAM, we are always releasing the exact new APIs which have been added. So you are able to go back on the CSAM announcements and the latest CSAM releases and go back and see, for example, the item system update was released in the latest CSAM release, which has been asked for years, and we finally got it. So, but I do know, Dean, you're asking something slightly different. You're asking much more detailed level, what has been released, when, which version, and all of that. So How long does it take CSAM changes to get deployed in tenants? Whenever we release a new version of CSAM, nowadays with the new model, when we have a new owner for the CSAM releases, we only release those CSAM versions which are released worldwide. So, for example, the upcoming CSAM update, which is the September update on the next Friday, not this Friday, the week after, so the Ignite Friday, we will make sure that we are matching the build, which is released in a SharePoint Online worldwide on the server side. So that means that anything what's new will be working on the server side as well. In a sign on the tool update on SPFX project where there is a new release. So the tools is probably referring to the Visual Studio support. We are still working with Visual Studio guys on getting a better support on SharePoint Framework. The web stack tooling no doubt works. There's updates on the Yeoman templates with the release 4. But the Visual Studio support is still the same as it was with release 3 and 2 and 1. But we're still working on Visual Studio, the guys, to get a slightly better support for that. Good. Oh yes, the update tool for managing updates. So it's all manual for now. Which is true, and there's no exact timeline when it will be available, so most likely in the future versions. Yes, good comment from Paul. Maybe Visual Studio guys could open up a source for the extension so we could help them. Yeah, absolutely agree on that. Absolutely agree on that. But that's, even though it's the new age Microsoft, certain organizations and certain teams and certain things will take a while to get fully opened, and certain things, well, anyway, it's a much bigger discussion. That's always the challenge. But we're hitting the 1 hour marker. We're 2 minutes over the timeline. So let's close up this office hours. There was a lot to talk about here still. But like mentioned when we started the office hours, let's rebrand this office hours to be targeted on the PMP site's core, the .NET Core component, and the .NET CSAM-based development like the PnP provisioning engine and the PnP PowerShell. And then the Thursday meeting, the JavaScript special interest group and SharePoint Framework special interest group will be adjusted to be bi-weekly and really concentrating on the SharePoint Framework and the JavaScript development. But if you have any questions or comments or follow-up, please use the techcommunity.microsoft.com. We are here to help you, and that's really the fundamental idea of the PMP. We want to get you unblocked, and we want to help you on your journey on learning the right ways of doing development. But thank you for joining. Recording will be up in YouTube channel within, I would estimate that within 4 or 5 hours, so relatively fast. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Boza.